Hey girls and dudes, hey! So per usual, I already have my brows done, but now that I actually have a tutorial on how I do them, I'll link it below and also at the end of the video if you want to watch it. But to start out this look, I will be priming my lids using the Balm Time Balm Concealer in the shade Lighter Than Light, and I'll be blending it out with a beauty blender. I don't really know why I haven't been loving eyeshadow primers. I've just been using concealers instead, and it's been working wonders for me, so maybe I'll go back to primers, but maybe I'll just stick with concealers. I don't know. To set my lid, I'm going to be going into the Kat Von D Shade and Light Eye Palette in the shade Lucius, or Lucius, I think it's Lucius. But anyways, I'm using a Sigma F35 brush to apply this, and I'm just going to set. Next, I'm going to go into the shade Ludwin, which is this really pretty peachy shade, with a fluffy brush. And I'm going to apply this in my crease area. This is going to be our transition shade. And I'm just blending. I'm really blowing this out. And I love these shadows for a blown out look because they're really easy to blend. And then I'm going to go back in and add a little bit more of the shade until I get a nice peachy transition shade. I'm just blending this out for a more messy, kind of grungy look. So when in doubt, just keep blending. Next, I'm going to go into the shade Succubus using a Sigma E25 brush. This is probably my favorite shade of the entire freaking palette, I just have to be honest. But anyways, moving on, I'm going to start packing this on my lid, and I'm going to bring it only just barely touching my socket area or your crease area, whatever you want to call it. Just barely going to touch it. We are not going to go past it at this point, just barely touch it. Also, make sure you're not going too far into the inner corner with this shade because we don't want to have that like deader than we really want to look kind of look. We also don't want to look like a panda or anything like that. Then once the product starts leaving the brush or is almost completely off the brush, I'm going to go in and start softening that line right in that crease area or socket area where I told you to stop. Now we're going to go in and kind of blend this out and soften that line. And then once we get that line blended out, we're going to start kind of blending it upwards a little bit and past that crease a little bit to give that grungy, blown out, smoky look. You can see here that I'm really taking my time with this and using really small kind of motions. And I do this because sometimes when I go way too fast with it, that's when shadows start getting patchy or skidding around. So sometimes taking your time just ends up giving you a way better blown out look, if that makes sense. That's just what I do. Going back into that fluffy brush, which by the way, all of the brushes will be linked down in the description box. I'm gonna run this around the perimeter and just start blending out any harsh lines that just kind of exist on the outer portion. I'm not gonna bring this on the lid or anything like that. Next, I'm gonna go into the shade Liberatus, which is this white shade. I'm gonna use this to highlight my brow bone, and I'm using a Sigma E55 brush here. I'm tapping this on my brow bone area, and then I'm gonna use a fluffy brush to make sure everything is still nice and blended out. I'm then going to wipe away any fallout that may have happened, and then we're going to start beating our face. Starting off with primer, I'm going to be using the Milk Makeup Blur Stick. I'm just going to press this into my pores and then smoosh it into my pores. For foundation, I'm going to be using the IT Cosmetics CC Cream in the shade Light, and then I'm just going to apply this using a dry beauty blender, and I'm just going to take my time here and just press it into my skin. For concealer, I'm going to use the Nars Radiant Creamy Concealer in the shade Chantilly and the Bare Minerals Bare Skin Concealer in the shade Fair. I'm going to use the Bare Minerals Concealer on the inner portion of my under eye where it's all dark and stuff. And then I'm going to use the Nars Concealer kind of wherever I just want it to be highlighted, or just everywhere else basically is what I'm trying to say. Then I'm going to blend it out using a beauty blender. Blend. Yeah, okay. To set my under eye, I'm going to be using the Tarte Smooth Operator Translucent Powder, and I'm using a Sigma F35 brush to apply this so I don't crease up and stuff. All right, then I'm going to move on to the Kat Von D Shade and Light Palette in that light bronzer shade. I'm going to apply this using a Real Techniques contour brush, and I apply it and then blend upwards. I try not to drag it down because then I just look all hollow and stuff and it just looks like a hot mess. Anyways, for blush, I'm going to be using my favorite blush of life, which is the Sigma Serene blush. Just tap. And for highlight, the Becca Cosmetics Jaclyn Hill palette. But I'm using Champagne Pop and Pearl, and put this on, and holy moly, that's what I'm saying. Going back into that shade Ludwin, that peachy shade, I'm going to use a Sigma E25 brush, and I'm going to start blowing out my under eye. And I'm just going to run this across my lower lash line, just back and forth. You can really blow this out because this is just our transition shade, and you can blow it out as much as you want because this is a grunge look, guys and girls. So just do what you want. Go crazy. Then I'm going to use a smaller detailed type of brush. This one's by Eco Tools. I'm going to dip this into that Succubus shade, my favorite shade of life. And we're gonna press the shade up against our lower lash line, so it's gonna be closer to that lower lash line than the transition shade we used. Once again, I'm not gonna bring it too far into the inner corner, but I am going to bring it into that outer corner and make sure I'm connecting where both the outer lid area and the lower lash line meet, because we don't wanna have any gaps there. Then I'm gonna take my Sigma E25 brush, run this across my lower lash line, and start blending everything together and make sure everything's nice and blown out. I'm gonna go back into that white Liberatus shade, and I'm gonna use a Sigma E55 to tap this onto my inner corners, and this is gonna be our inner corner highlight. For mascara, I'm gonna use the Better Than Sex Mascara by Too Faced. I'm gonna put this all over. And fake lashes are totally optional for this look, but I'm gonna put them on because I can't stop. I'm using the House of Lashes Siren lashes, which are my favorite of life, but also my favorite for looks where you're not wearing liner because they look so natural. Then I'm gonna take the Urban Decay Chill Setting Spray and then just chill out for a second. And then I'm gonna use the Girlactik Beauty Matte Liquid Lip Paint. I don't know. This is in the shade Demure. This is a new favorite alert. Obsessed with this lip shade, especially for grunge looks. Just applying this and freaking love it. Anyways, this is the final look. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up. Say, hey girl, hey, down in the comments box, because you know I love talking to you. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.